Okay, I think we're at the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Performance Analytics Academy. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. A couple of logistical things that we'll go through real quick, and then we'll get into our session so we can have some time for Q&A at the end. So I'm always trying to, there we go. All right, so this is for you. We try to make sure that we bring fresh ideas and better understanding to different things that are out there and practical guidance whenever we can around different topics within performance analytics and reporting. So make sure that you try to get as much out of this as you can. This is being recorded, and we'll actually have it back out on the community later on today and also out on our YouTube channels as well. So with that being in mind, with it being recorded, if that is an issue for your organization, that you're on a call that's being recorded, you might want to go ahead and drop now. Q&A, make sure that you ask questions. There is a Q&A section within the Zoom call itself that you can ask questions. Please try to ask the questions there rather than the chat. We have people that are on the call that will be monitoring those questions. And if there are questions that can be answered during the presentation, we'll go ahead and answer those via typing that answer out to you. If it cannot be, then we'll wait until we get to the question portion of the presentation. If the questions that you ask are pertaining to the topic, we'll get to those first. If there are questions about other topics and time permits, we will get to those as well. All right, so my name is Thomas Davis, and I'm the host today. And we have Leonard that is on today, and he's going to be talking about using performance analytics with HR information, which I'm excited to hear about myself. It's good to make sure that we show that performance analytics can be used for other things outside of probably the most popular, which are incident, request, change, and things of that sort. So showing that HR can be leveraged with performance analytics as well, I think is a great thing to showcase today. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to him. And whenever you're ready, you can take over sharing, and we're ready to hear it.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. All right. Just a quick confirm. Can you see my screen okay?
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Thanks again, Thomas. Hello, folks. My name is Leonard Picagna. I am an advisory architect for the Now Intelligence product family, which means I specialize in predictive intelligence, the virtual agent NLU, our AI search technology, our process optimization, and today's topic, performance analytics. So I'm going to spend the next, I think, 30, 40 minutes or so talking about performance analytics for HR. And really, who is this session for? So you may be a performance analytics admin or an admin of the platform, and you've been asked to implement or support HR analytics. So this session's for you. Or you just might be an HR admin or analyst who heard about this session and you want to better understand what performance analytics for HR brings to the table over, in platform reports or maybe your enterprise BI tools that you're using today. So what we're going to learn today is I'm going to cover what is performance analytics. And I know this is the PA Virtual Academy, so I know a lot of you are probably familiar with performance analytics already. So, but we may have some HR folks who have joined, so I just want to spend 5 minutes and talk about performance analytics and what it is. And then really the meat of today's conversation is, as Thomas mentioned, we are going to focus on the delivered use cases for HR. What can PA do for your HR team? And then we'll cover what's needed to install it, to configure it, what kind of plugins do you need, what kind of roles do you need, and then cover resources. And I saw that we've got 2 veterans who taught me, Adam Stout and Dan Kane are on, so they will be answering your questions while I'm presenting. And if we have any remaining ones, we'll try to answer it at the end of the presentation. Okay. So for those who are new to performance analytics or coming in from the HR perspective, performance analytics is an in-platform analytics solution purpose-built for ServiceNow applications. So those applications could be CSM, which I know we talk about quite a bit, HR, CSM, SecOps, ITBM, and et cetera. Okay, and some of the key benefits that you get from an in-platform analytics solution is that we can get real-time or near real-time performance because we're not moving the data off the platform. Okay, everyone is working off the same data set, right? So it's really common that someone will say, hey, my data doesn't look like yours because the data was exported 2 days ago, right? And there's also, no arguing around how did you come up with that number, right? The platform says the SLAs are green, but whatever you exported says the SLAs were failing the SLAs. Native just means for us that we ship with a number, hundreds actually, of key performance indicators that provide insight into the performance of your organization. And today we'll talk about the metrics that matter for an HR organization. And then finally, we are able to leverage the security model that you implemented in the platform. So meaning people are only able to see the data they have access to. So you build a dashboard, one dashboard, and everyone will only see the data that they've got access to. HR analytics is a scoped application, so we enforce that security through that application scope. So I always get this question, especially with customers who have not used PA yet. They're saying, "Hey, I'm using reports. So what is the difference between what I can do in performance analytics versus what I can do in reporting?" And I don't really see this as a versus conversation. Both are complementary. And you use reports and performance analytics in different situations. So reporting is great for telling me where I am today. What is the state of things right now? For example, what is my case backlog? Okay. And PA is powerful because we are storing the historical data for your key performance indicators. So, for example, we know what your backlog was last quarter, right? Because if you're just looking at a report, backlog changes, right? If you're just running reports against the table. But because performance analytics is keeping that historical data, we see back in time what the backlog numbers were actually, what they were actually. This historical perspective gives me the 2 data points I need to see whether or not my trend is improving. And then in performance analytics, we can also set targets and thresholds. And then we can apply trending functions against those targets. So we can see how far away are we from our target? What is the trend toward that target? Okay. Another advantage of performance analytics, and for those veterans who've been attending these PA virtual academies, is you always hear us talking about this leading, lagging indicator structure on how a best practice on how to set up your dashboard, right? And so what I've got here is the different personas, which would be HR executive, HR manager, and HR agent. And we've got the HR executives sets what we call a lagging indicator. In this case, improve employee customer CSAT by 15% over 90 days. Now, that guy's orange. If this guy turns red, there's nothing we can do. But below that, we have leading indicators that influence this higher level objective. And so we place those key performance indicators at the level at the level where the persona can actually take an action, where they have the responsibility and they can take action. So in this case, the HR manager has control on first time resolution percentages or reducing backlog. And at the agent level, they've got control over their individual cases. For example, avoiding cases that are sitting in your queue for over 30 days or avoiding cases not worked on for greater than 5 days. So these are leading indicators because if we can keep those green, our top lagging indicator, which is the executive business metric of improving employee CSAT, stays in the green, right? And we have very specific visualizations that help all those different personas stay on top of the key performance indicators that they are responsible for. And so you might have seen this in the past, but in order to construct that kind of dashboard of lagging and leading indicators, we've got something called KPI Composer to help you set that up and visualize it. Okay. Along that proactive thread of where performance analytics can help you be more proactive is something called KPI signals. Okay, and I'm not going to go into this in huge depth because there's a recording that does a great job by Peter Goris, who talks about how we can use these KPI signals to really do what we call score noise reduction, right? So you've got all these KPIs out there. How do I know which ones to focus on? And so KPI signals, because we're keeping the historical data of that particular KPI, in this case, mean time to resolve, we can tell you proactively when we're starting to deviate from the mean. And so then we will, whoever's assigned to that KPI signal will get an alert saying, hey, this mean time to resolve is trending in the wrong direction. In this case, we're 3.3 standard deviations above the mean time to resolve. That could be a troubling problem for us because we're increasing how long it takes to resolve our incidents or our cases. And we may then take action and then drive maybe more people, more agents to help us solve the current cases in the queue. Okay. And so this sort of drives into looking at a broader picture of being able to look at our process holistically. And so this is so we bundled something called process optimization in our enterprise SKU. So this allows us to go from that performance analytics KPI in your analytics hub, or if you're accessing it from Analytics Center, and we can drill down and mine the actual process flow. Okay, and so I'm going to bounce here real quick and just to show you what that looks like, right? So we've got here, percent of incidents resolved on first call. I've got a KPI signal showing me that, I'm starting to trend below the mean, right? So, and that's percent of incidents resolved on first call. And so I can click if I'm looking at the enterprise SKU, if I've got that enterprise SKU, I can actually click and drill into the process. It'll run a process mining step. And then it will give me, based on a rule engine, some summaries, some insights. So here it's showing me the KPI and the trend. And then, well, there's no insights in this particular one that I set, but it would provide some insights into what we might be able to do to solve that issue. And then we can actually drill into the process itself. I can see why I don't have any insights because I picked something very simple. Okay. So that is sort of where you're where you can go, where we're taking performance analytics and pairing it hand in hand with process optimization. All right. And then finally on the performance analytics area and how it differs from reporting is that we have this capability called Spotlight, which allows us to focus on the right work. Right? And so here I've got an HR case worker and they've got their workload, right? And normally if I'm coming in, right, an agent would go through and maybe rank what they're going to work on based on this priority column, right? Or maybe on an SLA breach. And so in this case, with Spotlight, we can create a weighted formula based on different KPIs that help us align to what the executive has set. And we can then put a score and auto sort the score so that the agent is working and prioritizing their work off the score. And so here we can see that the score here is ranking things that have priority 5 or priority 4. You in your area, if you're ITSM, you might have, used this to, well, a good use case I see is where, we've got employees sending in requests as incidents. Now I know that doesn't happen to a lot of organizations, but in some of my customers that I support, a lot of employees will send out requests as incidents when they should really be sending in requests. So Spotlight helps those customers kind of filter out those requests so that they can focus on the real incidents that are causing the problem. All right. I'm not going to read this, but it will be in your deck that you get, or in this recording for reference. If you ever need to, have a decision chart that kind of talks about some of the key capabilities between performance analytics and reporting, you have this as a reference. Okay, so we're past the review, and we talked about how PA and reporting are unique and how they can be complementary. And so let's focus on really the delivered use cases for HR. Delivered meaning, what do we have out of the box? What don't you have to create if you're trying to help your HR team gain insight into the performance of the company from an HR perspective? And so we have 3 core personas for delivered dashboards or out-of-the-box dashboards. We have dashboards for the HR executive, for the HR manager, and the HR agent. And the analytics from an executive perspective help the executive understand from an onboarding perspective, how are employees doing and how are they progressing through the onboarding process? Are they able to, sign up for their direct deposit? Are they able to get their laptop and their their phone service switched over to the corporate plan? And is it happening within established SLA parameters? What is the satisfaction score? Are employees happy with the current process of onboarding, right? And then also taking a look at the average time to resolve these issues, how are we trending? Okay. An HR manager, so an HR executive is looking at it more from a large organization perspective, or even a global perspective in some cases. The HR manager tends to be much more departmental or regional. And so the HR manager would be looking at how is their team performing against case workload for their department or for their region. Is his or her team meeting the expectations, from multiple different KPI levels, right? Mean time to resolve or SLAs. The employees also, the HR manager is also maybe interested in, they put out in the employee service portal, which is the employee landing page, the content. Maybe there's a bunch of content about, going back into the office, right? And so they're trying to see, is anyone, how many eyeballs or how many clicks are they getting in certain content areas and on certain pages. Also, like campaigns, like if they're putting out a survey for coming back to the office to determine whether or not they should open up the gym or the cafeteria, is anyone clicking on that campaign where they're trying to get survey input, right? And so the HR manager can use that content analytics and that campaign analytics to improve the employee portal as well as the campaigns. And then also looking at the effectiveness of knowledge. And then the final persona, the HR agent, they care about, and what's important for them is, being able to monitor their caseload and prioritize it. We talked a little bit about Spotlight. And so being able to just monitor their caseload and then also see how they are doing against their team's SLAs, right? And how are they performing? Are they behind? Do they need to get help from their manager in order to meet the team SLAs? What's their workload look like? Okay. And so we're going to dive into some of the out-of-the-box content and then also show you what you can do with all the key performance indicators for HR. All right. So as I mentioned, we've got key performance indicators out of the box, so you don't have to start from scratch. You can find, the 60 plus and actually all the listings of the key performance indicators in our documentation. But at a high level for HR, those the groupings of the key performance indicators revolve around case analysis, right? Being able to check the case reassignments, being able to see, if we've got staffing volume, appropriate staff to handle the case volume. I mentioned the employee content analytics. So this allows us to gauge do employee portal analysis. So being able to see page views, daily bounces, the amount of time someone spends on a page, right? If someone's spending a lot of time on a benefits page, we may need to redesign that page. We've got analysis and analytics on lifecycle events, surveys, SLA analysis, and as I mentioned, campaign tracking. All right. So let's take a look at the executive view and what we can do, what kind of analytics, performance analytics provides for the executive. So out of the box, we've got this HR onboarding executive dashboard. And so, as I mentioned, this is what allows the executive to see at a high level, right, at an organizational level, how are employees progressing through their onboarding activities. And if I just switch over, we can take a quick look at that dashboard. And so here we've got, an example of what's out of the box. So here we see, they can see the trend, the percent of closed cases reassigned, onboarding cases per day, and they can drill into this. They can select the department maybe that they want to focus on. Maybe they want to focus on, IT and see how their employees are onboarding, going through the onboarding process. They can take a look at, survey results as well as the cases and see sort of that case volume across different departments, as well as some of the survey results and also the attrition, right? And so this gives the HR executive some high-level views. Here we've got a view where we've got our workbench widget where we're taking a look at average number of onboarding activities, and we've placed over some different KPIs so that we can see over time what that looks like, and then we can drill into different areas like locations and regions. All right. Now, we can just so we can take this. So this is out of the box, right? And so what's nice about this is if you've not customized your tables, for example, if you've not changed the short description name to something else, if you've not changed, like the location field, you can run through this guided setup, which will take you through and run the data collectors, and you will within hours, you will have these dashboards populated with your data, right? And so that's one of the advantages of performance analytics is that it gets you quickly, insight very quickly. If you've used the tables and the platform and the applications, sort of out of the box. Now, if you've customized it, it's no big deal. It's just something will show up. One of these widgets would show up with no data, and you just go back into your data collector and your indicator sources and remap those things. Okay, so the HR onboarding executive, the out-of-the-box dashboard, which what we're looking at, allows us to see, all these onboarding metrics, but just with taking the same metrics and adding some more onto the dashboard, we can set this up in a leading, lagging indicator setup that I mentioned earlier that allows us to be much more proactive. So using the out-of-the-box HR key performance indicators, we see, we're reusing the onboarding ones on the right, but then we've got some new ones where we've sort of pulled it from the back of the out-of-the-box dashboard for the employee retention rate, as well as we've added year-to-date service delivery costs. And so the way this is structured, right, for an executive is they care about these high-level key performance indicators, these key business outcomes that they're trying to get the organization to achieve. So here we've got employee retention rate, which looks green. The color means something, right? Its target is 90. We're exceeding target, so it's green, and we've got a positive change. We see the costs are good. They're in line. The target that we mentioned, the threshold is 200K. And then we see right away, the executive can see right away, the average days to onboard is red. We're actually taking longer, right? So the target's 6 days, we're taking an extra day. Right away, these are set as the lagging indicators. And below it, we can start seeing some leading indicators. So we can start seeing like the employee experience index. And if I drill into that, that index is actually made up of these leading KPIs, right? And so this index is an aggregate of these leading KPIs, like average close time of cases, percent of employees with portal engagement. So right away, the executive can see, number of new cases is starting to increase beyond what we're used to. We can see that the knowledge article ratings aren't 1 anymore. They're starting to trend downward, right? And all of these affect the employee experience index, which then, in this case, they've assembled it because these are the factors that this CHRO has identified with her team as negatively impacting the employee retention rate. So we want to jump on these before they become issues. Same thing in terms of year-to-date service delivery costs. So we can see the case management trends, right? So we can see the number of new cases. And what's nice about performance analytics over, say, a report is we can overlay different key performance indicators. So we can see number of new cases, and then I can see the average closure times. And I can see that, the number of new cases is increasing and the average closure times is decreasing. And maybe I want to say, well, does knowledge have any impact on that? We revamped our knowledge articles, and we want to add the knowledge views, and we want to see if there's any kind of correlation between the knowledge views increasing and our mean time to resolve starting to decrease, right? And so that's one of my favorite things about performance analytics is that you can easily overlay all of these different metrics on top of each other to see whether or not there's a correlation, right? So same thing there, and then we can break it down, right? We can also go through. We've got the number of new cases. We can break down to the backlog and see, right away we're seeing problems in sales and IT that we've got in the Sparkline graph here, and this chart next to it is trending in a negative direction, right? We have an increased backlog in sales, and as a CHRO, I may want to get my team together and say we need to focus on sending more agents to focus on, trying to resolve this backlog that's here. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit from just an onboarding activity. This says Rome. This should actually correct this. This is in Quebec. In Quebec, we introduced a new dashboard called the employee. Oh, I apologize. The employee relations dashboard. And so this is great because this allows us to get a comprehensive view of really all the sort of the allegations that are going on in the organization. So something a CHRO is really needs to keep a pulse on is like things like sexual harassment, right? We've got, geez, I think more than half the workforce now is women, right? And so, keeping a pulse on sexual harassment is important, right? Because we don't want, you may not, that's not the kind of organization you want to run, right? So being able to take a look at sexual harassment, wage allegations, wage issues, scheduling issues, discrimination issues. These are all things that are, all things that an HR executive needs to keep a pulse on so they can enact policy to correct anything where they're seeing some problems in some of these core areas, right? And so my slide's wrong. This was actually released in Quebec, but this this is another dashboard from an executive view. Now we have heard about mobile, and I think everything in performance analytics, all those key performance indicators that allow us to stay on top of our process, stay aligned to the outcomes that our executives set. All that's available on, a mobile device, right? We can build mobile analytics dashboards and put that in the palm of our hands, right? And I see, I've been covering, this technology for over 3 years, and I always get this, these calls where my customers are asking me, "Hey, Leonard, our executives aren't actually going into the employee service portal. They're not going into the service portal." And so, what do I find is when we work together and we, put together a mobile platform, all the executives have mobile devices. They all have smartphones. They all have tablets. And I find in a lot of my customer cases that executives are more willing to click into like a mobile dashboard that's on their phone when they're in a meeting versus going into the actual ServiceNow platform. So it's a nice adoption capability where we have the ability to put all these analytics into a mobile, into a smartphone or a tablet. All right, so we talked about the executive persona. Now let's talk about what you get from a HR manager or process owner, HR process owner persona, right? And so out of the box, there is an HR manager dashboard. You'll notice here that there are report widgets. So this data is more real time than maybe an executive, right? The executive was looking at the trends. And this manager in this case is looking at, real time data. So they're looking at their backlog in real time. They're looking at their breach SLAs in real time. And they're looking at it from their team perspective, right? And so they're looking at it, this dashboard is constructed so they can see it from their team. And then they can focus on any kind of performance factors that are impacting their SLA performance, right? Or being able to see, well, am I bouncing around? Are we bouncing around the different HR tiers? And why is that? How do we make sure that we're sending cases to the right group and allowing us to analyze that, okay? And so their dashboard looks a little bit like, looks like this. So this is the out-of-the-box dashboard. You notice all the, there's a lot of scoping, so I can't edit it without the scope. So let me change my scope. This one is Human Resources Core. Okay. And we can see this is much more real time. What's nice is we can actually drill into the HR cases, and we can see the cases, the actual case details below that, and we can go in, because we're all in platform, we're in the platform, we can actually go in there and access that case and make that change. We have the ability to, this is a list view, so we can go through and take a look at the metrics timeline, all those kind of things that you don't get if you export this data out, right? Let's see if I can get back to my dashboard by hitting the back. Yep, okay. And all right, so what was that? And let me see here. All right. So here's the out-of-the-box HR manager dashboard. So here we're looking at trends. So in this case, this one is sort of switched to, percent of reassigned cases resolved. Being able to look at and go into the workbench widget and see the like the different states, for open and closed cases, and overlaying different KPIs such as average age, those that are breached, things that have been breached, and looking at the data in that point in time. Something also that is really important is being able to just go down at the agent level. And an HR manager will often want to see, what's the performance of my agents, at an agent level. How are they doing in terms of resolving open cases? And so we've got lots of key performance indicators and a lot of different ways of being able to see how the agents are performing. What's the agent backlog, right? How quickly are they able to solve cases and what different types? Okay. Right, so we can switch all these and just focus on, for example, a specific HR agent, right? And then we can change all those and we can see, their average reassignment, their unassigned cases, their average case, their average age to be able to resolve a case. Right? And so this helps the HR manager determine, well, maybe someone, if the average age is increasing, and we can drill into the types of cases that they're working on, right? Because we can always see the records, right? And if I take a look and, I don't have, let's see, like drop the category on here. Let's see here, category HR service. All right, maybe it's like taking a look at the HR service, right? And we can see maybe this agent where their average time is trending in the wrong direction, it's taking too long. Maybe I'll take some of these HR service, these problems that they're working on. Maybe it's this disciplinary issue, and maybe I'll assign it to a different agent, right? So what's nice is I can go through and I can take this off their queue. I can just click into the record, and because we're in the platform, I can just assign it to another agent. So I can move that workload off, right? So I can just go through and open up the record and change the assigned to, right? And assign it to somebody else on my team, so I can positively influence the mean time to resolve, right? Which is that leading indicator that we mentioned earlier. All right. Okay. Okay, so that's the HR manager taking a look at their team's performance against the caseload. But they would also take a look, I mentioned two things, on the content, the performance of the employee service portal. And so we've got a number of different metrics that allow you to see, the visits and clicks per page, over time. What kind of channels are they coming in through? Are they coming in through the web? Are they coming in through mobile devices? The amount of time they stay in the portal or on a particular page, okay? As well as campaign analytics. So here we can see the effectiveness of a campaign over time. And so did they click on, so here we've got like COVID videos, right? So getting information around COVID, are employees actually looking at that, or are they clicking into it? If they're not clicking into it, maybe we need to position the campaign content, that content block, somewhere more prominent on the employee service portal. Or maybe we just need to make the video shorter, right? But it gives us analytics on who's actually clicking into the content that you put out there, okay? Pretty simple to set up. If you go through the documentation, it all revolves around setting up a tracking profile. And then you assign that tracking profile to the header of whatever portal page you want to monitor. So if I wanted to monitor the click activity and the campaign activity on the employee service portal, I would just take that tracking profile that I define, and I would embed that into the header of that portal page, and then I'll start collecting information. All right. And our last persona for today is the agent persona. And here's the out-of-the-box dashboard. There's an HR agent dashboard that allows them to monitor what their world in real time. So if I bounce out of that and go into my instance and click into that. So I've modified it a little bit in that I've added some KPIs to the dashboard, and I've rearranged the dashboard. But you can see here that they can see this prioritized workload. The spotlight score is auto ranking what they should focus on, and then they can see their team, their performance and their team's performance, and they can see, for example, open critical HR cases that they've got that he's assigned to is red, so that's not good. He's got to figure out how to knock those out. He can also see his team's performance, so you can see the backlog starting to flatten out. Average age is slightly increasing. And you can see the mean time to resolve, right? So the mean time to resolve is going down. So that's a good thing. So, and he can see his team efficiency ranking compared to other teams. So that's something I really like about the performance analytics is it gives the HR agent, right, who's working on cases. They may have missed the company meeting that said where the CHRO said, hey, we're trying to improve the onboarding experience. They might have missed it, right, because they were too busy handling open cases. So this is a great way of using Spotlight to build this weighted score to guide them on what work to prioritize. Sort of like when you've got a kid, your kids, and you're trying to feed them vegetables and you sneak it into zucchini bread, right? They don't know, but they're eating it. And same thing with the agent. That's the power of Spotlight. It's just right in there, and they are prioritizing their work based on a weighted score that management has set up. All right, so that's a little bit of a flyby of some of the out-of-the-box dashboards and analytics that come with performance analytics for HR that allows the HR team to gain insight into the performance of the organization and the mind, sort of like the sentiment of the employees. How are they doing? Okay, so how do we enable this? How is it configured? So just for reference for this presentation, you can also obviously find this in the documentation, but these are the core plugins that your admin is going to have to install in order to get these out-of-the-box HR analytics. And then once the admin has installed it, the admin needs to grant PA admin rights to the HR admin role so that HR admin and the HR analysts and the power users can actually run some of these dashboards and populate them, right? Because we've got to go through, the indicator source, right? Which is mapped to our indicator, right? And then they have to have, the rights to run the data collectors, and then also the rights to be able to construct and modify their own widgets and dashboards. I sometimes I feel like I don't mean to be remedial about this, but just in case there's an HR analyst saying, okay, you covered a whole bunch of, dashboards. I don't see how to modify that. So let me just take a minute and show really quickly how to modify these things. Lifecycle events, performance analytics. So let me change the scope. So I mentioned, those 60 plus KPIs. They're all accessible by choosing the widget category, performance analytics, right? And so this is right. So those KPIs are all mapped to widgets, and say, I want to add like a case backlog, right? So I just search for backlog, and then maybe I want a time series, right? And so I would search sort of like through a library, and I would search for the metric that I want. Let's see if this has any data in it, right? This is for incident, but if I pulled one per case, same kind of thing, right? And then that way you can just easily, grab that, put it on the dashboard, manipulate where that goes, that kind of thing, right? All right. Okay, so sort of wrap this up, and then we'll get to your questions. Okay. So resources. So the last part is, resources. I know Thomas showed in the beginning some other great virtual academy, performance analytics, virtual academy resources and recordings. But there's also some great courses. So I always recommend if you're new to performance analytics, and most often, if you're an admin or PA admin, you probably know about performance analytics, but if you've got HR people coming into the fold, they're going to want like an HR user who can build a dashboard or, and maybe even run a data collector. So you should really point them to Performance Analytics Essentials. It's a great free class on Now Learning that as long as you create an account, you can access. Also, I'm surprised, apologize. I'm always surprised at how much new things I learned about, just reporting, right? And just like, how do I take an Excel spreadsheet and merge it with, some data in my table? Or how do I, you know, do all kinds of different, more advanced things in reporting? So the getting started with reporting, that was revamped for Knowledge 20. It's always a great class to take. There's also an advanced one too. But these are the bare minimums. If you've got HR folks who are, starting to walk into HR analytics, they should definitely take these courses so they can get familiar with it. And then finally, if you are going, I see some organizations where they will have like an HR PA person, and that person, if they're responsible for, building out, the data collectors and new KPIs, they should really take Performance Analytics Advanced. Okay. All right. So with that, we're at the Q&A session. So Thomas, maybe Adam and Dan answered all the questions and we're good, or do we have any other questions that we need to tackle?
So I think right now is a good time. If anybody else wants to submit them in the Q&A, that'd be great. We have a couple questions not related directly to the HR content. So I just want to give everybody a chance to submit any questions you have in the Q&A related to Leonard's presentation. Thank you, Leonard. I wanted to thank you for going through this. I do appreciate how deep we go, and particularly if we have some people listening in from the HR perspective. A lot of the PA team gets a little insulated in what comes in, but I think one of the great things about the platform is you don't have to be a reporting expert, analytics expert to use everything that's in there. There's just so many great tools, and it's just if we the more we share with the business users, the easier life gets, right? And we can then focus in on the advanced stuff, but let them take care of, let them use everything. I love when you showed the Workbench app. That is still my favorite. It's the best data visualization I have ever seen in how much data we get there and how actionable it is.
Yeah. Thomas, I agree with you. I've been, my history is, decades of building data warehouses. I'm certified on multiple enterprise BI tools, and that Workbench widget is very unique. I've not seen that before. So in my tenure, so I love that widget as well. I think it gives a lot of information on one page.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a couple more questions coming in here, and there's some generic stuff. So Leonard, if you want to answer them, you can. I'll read them to you, and if not, I'm happy to jump on some of them. So one of them came in. Can you overlay widgets like you can reports in the data visualizations?
Can you overlay widgets? Well, you can overlay when you build a widget. You can specify the different KPIs. And then that's what gives you that sort of what I was showing earlier. That gives you this sort of like this overlay. I'm not quite sure, these boxes are widgets. So I'm going to say no, unless Adam or Dan or Thomas, you know differently. But I normally approach it from overlaying the different KPIs.
Yeah, and that's how I would do it as well. So you can't mix reports and widgets together in the classic. I think we actually can and now experience. But in the widgets we have now, you can have out of the box limit is 7 supporting indicators. It depends on the visualization. So single scores can't overlay anything, but the time series you absolutely can. You can pick multiple indicators to show on there, and which ones you want to have as lines, and which color do you want to be. I want this to be an area, this to be a bar. Just tons of different options for you to change what's going on.
Right.
And some amazingly powerful ones. Actually, I like the overlays. Really, really powerful things you can do. And I'll put in one that to get exactly what I want. Sometimes I'll use formula indicators, particularly like for negatives or change, for the number of closed incidents. I'll use a formula indicator to flip my number of closed incidents to show as a negative number, which isn't actually right, but in a chart, it looks really powerful when I can see my new cases, my closed cases, and then the net change all together. And they don't, everything we're talking about, actually the one you have in the middle is great. It's knowledge views and number of new cases. So they don't have to be related in any way, other than if you apply a breakdown, they'd have to have the same breakdown.
Right. But Thomas, that does bring up a great question, because, I was showing the HR manager dashboard, right? And I believe this was using one of these here, case dashboard. I think this was using report widgets, right? So there's nothing stopping you from these are report widgets, right? and you can drop on PA widgets too. But the problem is, right, that this is using an interactive filter versus a PA widget would use a breakdown, right? And so you have to think about that impact, right? Because it would be confusing to a user if you've got different ways of changing the filters on report widgets, and then they have to select a breakdown to actually change the data in the PA widget. So it's I typically don't recommend mixing and matching report widgets with PA widgets, although you can, because to keep it clear, right? That we want real-time data on one tab of the dashboard, and then maybe the trending data on another. Because of the breakdowns, you'd have to do some more work to try to make it look like you select something here and all the widgets change. Right?
So that's true with interactive filters. In Now Experience dashboards, that limitation effectively goes away. There is still the real time, not up to the second versus job runtime delay, but a lot of those issues are handled in Now Experience stuff. And if I'm saying Now Experience dashboard, and you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the archives in the PA Academy sessions, and you'll be able to see a couple of the sessions that we've had recently about talking about Now Experience and workspaces, and how PA and reporting have really converged in the new user experience.
Yep.
So great. Another question came in about for large organizations, does PA handle breakdowns by agent if it's not too large of a matrix? And I'll answer this one. The number of elements you have in your breakdown absolutely are going to impact the performance of your dashboard. There is how many scores we capture, that can matter. Job runtime, it can matter, but the thing you have to watch out for is the number of elements when you're pulling up the Analytics Hub, when I'm pulling up a dashboard, can impact it. I like to keep my number of elements under 100. 1,000 is fine. The default limit out of the box, it's either 5,000 or 10,000. I think it's 10,000. You don't want to have more than 10,000 elements, or you're going to get the message that the number of elements is exceeded. The way that you handle that is by adding elements filters. We have a session about hierarchy. So when we're talking about agents, I don't want to list my 2,000 agents because I don't remember all their names. I wish I did, but I don't remember all of them. And I really want to be able to go up and down the organization. So there's a PA Academy session we ran, and there's an awesome knowledge lab from K21. I think Dan did it. If not, it's Dan Kane, who's on the phone, did it in K20 about hierarchies in performance analytics. If you want to see a breakdown by agent, you can do that, but just don't throw all the agents on the dashboard. Take a look at how we leverage breakdown rollups, breakdown relations, and then the breakdown matrix itself to really have a great user experience. And that's my biggest concern is user experience. If you have more than 10,000 agents, then there can be a little bit more discussion involved as well. It can get too big. But if you do want to collect them all, just make sure we focus on the user experience and how I show it to my users, so I don't have my CEO browsing one at a time for each user. Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
No, that was just that's just perfect. That's actually related very much to the other, I think, another question. I think it's very similar to it on the number of elements exceeded. So I know John asked about in the current release, you occasionally get the number of elements exceeded. And that's really almost exactly what Adam is talking about here too. So it's a question. The question is whether it's still the case with Quebec. It's not really a release or a version issue. It's more of a consideration of the breakdown sources, and there is a property, as Adam mentioned there. There's a property where you can increase the default. The default of I can't remember. Is it 500 or 5? I can never remember. Adam, you may remember.
It's either 5,000. It's either 5,000 or 10,000.
Okay, the number of elements that can be in a breakdown. That can be in a breakdown source. You can set that to a higher number, but that being said, to kind of go along with everything Adam was just saying, you still want to examine the breakdown sources to see specifically the breakdown source to see if you are including elements that you really don't need. So, a good example of that is things like configuration items. That's instead of having a breakdown source that grabs the entire configuration item table or even one of the subtables, to create some conditions that might say, only show me CIs that are on that are actually associated with incidents over the last 3 months or something like that. So it actually limits that number down significantly. So there's a couple of considerations on that.
Yeah, different techniques. So that certainly you don't want to have a breakdown source any bigger than you need it to be. The actual use CIs is good. I'll also make sure that if I'm doing CIs, I break down by class first, and then I'll use a breakdown relation so that I'm not browsing a million CIs, but I can browse servers. I have a count by servers, and I want to drill into servers. Then I can see the servers in this data center. Then I can actually browse them. So I'm not trying to view a million at a time, but chunks of 1,000 maybe. And even then, when you're in thousands, you as a human, you can't consume that much information.
Right, just becomes very difficult to use. Yeah.
Right, and you can run into performance issues after that. The other thing that I'll look at is having elements filters, and so elements filters I can layer on top of it so that while I'm actually collecting 10,000, I'm collecting 10,000 elements, 5,000 elements, whatever it may be. Underneath that, my default view is only show me mine. However I can filter through that. Or I've filtered through that. The user could then remove it, and then if you type in a name, if I get my too many elements, if you type in a search, it'll do the search and come through. We just aren't going to show a big block of 10,000. Leonard, were you bringing up the plugin list again?
Yeah, I was just bringing this up to answer Dima's question real quick. So if you go into our documentation, you'll see the content analytics, all the HR kind of plugins that you need, and you can click into those, and you'll see the documentation itself. But I'm if you go into just your plugin list, though, I mean, and you type in, I think it's HR. Right, you can probably easily find them as well. They're typically tagged like HR, HRPA, so you can just do that as well. So Dima, hopefully, if you don't find that, let us know if you can't find it in the documentation.
And in the documentation, it's so every app has this. There is one list that has everything that is associated to PA, but then if you go into HR, if you go into CSM, they have a section as well. I recommend going through there because almost all of them have some great screenshots and tell you what's in it. You don't have to go install everything and go look. Go take a look at the documentation first and go, yeah, that is what I want. Does content analytics mean what you think it means? There's ServiceNow has lots of stuff in there. So sometimes, even though it's the word you use, it's not what you think it is. So go take a look at it. Even if it's not 100%, if it gets you halfway there, awesome, right? Go install it, then add what else you want. There's some of these are 50% of what you want. Sometimes they're 100% of what you want. Sometimes they're 150% you want. I just want one tab. They're there for you, but go check out that documentation. It's versioned as well. My recommendation is you go, even if you're not on Rome yet, go look at the Rome stuff to see what's coming. But then you can back down quickly to see what you have for Quebec available today.
And Adam, I'm typing in the URL and responding to that you just talked about.
Great. Okay, I have one. I'm going to talk about the cascading filters that came in. And before we get to that, so a question came in about customizing the scorecard indicators, particularly because you're trying to get something. If you can post a question about that in the community and maybe just draw a line in it in whatever screen capture tool, what you want to see, whether it's one of us or just somebody in the community might be able to answer on how you can do that. You can get extra lines. I'll just tell you, you can get extra lines in on a chart with formulas. If the target line isn't what I want, I'll do a formula, which is I'll create a new indicator, which is my target. And whether it's a constant or it's some derivative of it, particularly with the PA formulas, and we have a session on PA formulas from a little while ago, you can do some really advanced visualizations in the charts by adding in multiple indicators. But if that, I don't know that answered your question, it probably didn't. If you can post that question with a couple screenshots, hopefully in the community, somebody will be able to answer that for you. And then the last one I'm going to end up with, because it's going to take me a lot longer than the time we have, is talking about cascading filters and location. Great question about somebody trying to set up a cascading filter that is based off of country, state, city, and it doesn't work the way you think it should work. And I agree, it doesn't work the way you think it should work. In that if I can create the custom filter, I kind of see what I want and I kind of don't, because what it shows me when I do that is if I have 100 locations, it shows me maybe US and Canada 100 times, but I just see all these repeats. The cascading filters still require unique values. You can change the display field, which is different than the reference. The reference fields only let you pick the display name, or they don't let you pick. The value is the sys-ID. What you see is the display name, and it's one row to one row. And display names are almost always unique, so it's a unique choice list. With cascading filters, we let you change the field, which is awesome if I have something like incident. And I don't want to show the number, I want to show the short description, or I don't want to show the short description, I want to show the number. And it lets you, as when you're building the filter, use something different than the display value. But at the end of the day, it's still using the sys-ID of that row. So the question came in about common location, and common location, it absolutely can work, but you got to do a little bit of extra work to it. So on common location, there's a type field. I believe out of the box, it's not used. I don't think it's even on the form, but it is on the field. And so what I do, two options. I just use the type field, and I put in a country type, a state type, a city type, a campus type, a building, a floor, as much as detailed as you want to get to. And I set that type. And then in my cascading filter, I am just putting in, on the cascading filter, I select countries only where the type is country, states only where the type is city. To do that, you need to make sure that you're using the parent field as well. So I have a type and a parent, and my states all have a parent of country. My countries all have a parent of region, that type of logic. I'll often put shortcuts in the field as well. So if I have a building type, on that building type, I have a direct reference to the building type, to the campus, to the city, to the state, to the country. So I'll have, in that case, 4 fields that are direct references. So that way my interactive filters pull back all of the cities, everything with the city record, regardless of where it comes through. And then the other alternative to it, I said there's 2. One, I can use the type field that's there. The other option is to extend common location. And I like this one myself. I believe out of the box, common location is not marked as extensible, but you can make it extensible. You just uncheck or check the box to make it extensible. That's going to add a type field as well. And then I can have a type that they're not just all locations, but my locations have a type of city, state, region, country, building, location, floor, whatever you want it to be. They're all locations. Common location still works, but then I can have extra fields on top of it that are specific to city, specific to campus, specific to states. So again, I have to do a little bit of shaping from common location. Common location, I don't know that we're going to change it, because it's been the same way for 15 years. And so there's a lot to it about people rely on it the way it's working. That being said, if I'm building it right now from scratch, I'm going to make country not a choice list, but a reference field. I would probably do that type field out of the box. Not everybody's types are the same. That's one of the challenges about making it like this way out of the box. But it's something that I like to do, that I do, because it makes my reporting so much easier. It makes my visualizations easier. I can then go and say, give me all my states. Give me all my states that are in or my provinces that are in Canada, my states that are in Mexico. Again, really helpful to do some of that, but I don't know what all the choices are for you, because you may want to go down to the floor level. You may have building and campus, you may have building, but not campus. So we don't do it out of the box, but we give you a blank palette, a blank canvas for you then to work on that. And then if you have that set up, which I know a lot of customers do, but some don't, then layering custom interactive cascading filters, not custom, but just out of the box cascading filters will work really well. But the out of the box design is a bit challenging to get cascading to work the way you want it to work. It was a great question, by the way. I had mentioned this is Adam. I mentioned to Thomas that maybe we should do a session on that. But hopefully, what I'm talking about will help if we know what we're going through. If not, post some questions on the community, and then we may end up doing a session on that, as well as some other common use cases for cascading filters. We have talked about cascading filters in the past, if you want to go back and watch it, but I don't know that we went through this use case, particularly when you do want to modify the base table. All right, so I think we got through all the questions. And I got a little bit more to share with you, and we'll wrap up. All right. So, and we didn't get a chance to answer all the questions. As we go through, if you have more questions that we didn't answer, please post them in the performance analytics. As we go through in the community, I referenced a handful of previous sessions that we've done. There's a great index of all those previous sessions, whether you find them on YouTube or go here, get the supporting material. I have this bookmarked and I go back to it a lot. So lots of great content in there, whether you just browse from YouTube or you go back to the archive. That's there for you. If you have questions, go ahead and post those questions in the community for us to get to. I'm jumping the gun. So make sure you are looking at the community page, what comes up. Lots of great questions, and I appreciate a lot of people on the call who answer those for everybody. As Leonard said, there is amazing training and Now Learning available for you. Go, whether it's the K20 content or all the other content that's coming out and being updated. A lot of this comes out right after GA. So Rome is coming out very, very soon. Expect to have more content in here in September and October. Make sure you're checking back every few weeks and you will see more content in there. The big push of content comes out after our major releases, updated for those. And thank you for joining us at the PA Academy. There's also other academies out there to help you. The Platform Foundations Academy, Mobile App Academy, Virtual Agent Academy. We know that a lot of us have more responsibilities than just performance analytics, just analytics. So check out those other academies along with their archives. Really, really useful content for you. And up next, we are going to be talking about what's new in Rome in terms of solutions and features. We went really deep onto really went deep into HR, but we're going to talk about all the new stuff that's coming out in Rome across all the spans. So make sure that you watch this one if you can't attend live. You may want to be forwarding it out to some of your counterparts inside your company because lots of great content coming out in Rome for all the different analytics solutions, for all the different solutions out there. And if you are posting questions, we have this great reminder that's out there that somebody from one of our partners wrote actually about how to write a great question. Write a great question and you're going to get an answer really quickly. If you write a really vague question, it's hard for us to answer it and it's not going to get you what you want to do. So if you're new to the community, I highly recommend reading this article. And again, as we go through, make sure you post your questions in the community. You don't have to wait for us for the next 2 weeks. Catch up on those previous Academy sessions, whether it's cascading filters, data hierarchies, lots of great content out there beyond what we mentioned today. How can we make things better in the product for you? Submit those ideas in the idea portal and go through what's in the idea portal now and go, yeah, I want that too. We really value your feedback, and that is direct feedback that's going into our product management. And take some training. Lots of great training out there. I think there's something like 600 classes in Now Learning. It's just thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, more than anybody can take. But find something that's interesting and take that for you. And if you haven't taken it, ServiceNow fundamentals, virtual agent fundamentals, predictive intelligence fundamentals, lots of great content. And those K20 labs are still there as well if you didn't get a chance to take those. And with that, we're done, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for spending some time with us.